I had literally nothing, less than nothing. I had $50,000 of debt. I had no cash. And so I was up against all this debt. I had to make these payments. And then my boss told me I was the worst employee he ever had. And the economy was terrible at the time in 2010. And it was a very scary time for me.
Today, we are joined by real estate investor Mathew Pezon. He went from being knee-deep in debt to amassing $25 million in real estate assets.
Mathew shares the valuable lessons he's learned along the way, from the power of mentorship to the importance of developing a successful mindset.
Stay to the end to hear our thoughts on how you can approach achieving financial freedom. Let's dive in. Welcome to Rewrite Your Story, the podcast where change begins with you.
We're your hosts, Stephen and Sharlene.
As professional coaches and mentors trained in various modalities, we have helped hundreds of people
Bridge the gap between the person they are
and the person they want to be.
We bring you conversations with real people who have overcome real setbacks.
You will walk away with practical steps to find more clarity, alignment, and success in any area you want to improve.
So join us and discover how you have the power to overcome, to change, and to rewrite your story.
So pick up the pen. Your new chapter starts now.
We've got Mathew Pezon here all the way from Pennsylvania. And Mathew, welcome to our show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
We're excited as well because you're going to bring us a wealth of knowledge around wealth creation, how to change your mindset, and how you turn a passion, a side hustle into an income. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about your journey and what has brought you along this path.
Sure. So I am from the fourth generation of engineers, and I thought growing up that I wanted to go into engineering school, work for a big company, and that's the path that I took. So I did chemical engineering school at a university near me and started working in industry. And it was in 2010. It was difficult to get jobs. And so I was placed into a rotational program, which was a good thing. And my first boss told me that it was an IT role, and I was chemical engineering, and we're building servers. There wasn't really much documentation, and my or instructions or mentorship at the time told me that I was the worst employee he ever had, and the company should fire me. And that was when I realized that I didn't want to rely on a boss, a big company. I wanted to chart my own path, and then I started exploring real estate after that, and I've been in this business for about 10 years, and I just went full time recently. So there's a lot there to unpack, but I'd like to say that I'm a recovering engineer.
Recovering engineer. When we say full time, you have accumulated in that time $25 million worth of assets. Now, tell us about how that evolved. Tell us a little bit about, going from zero to hero in wealth creation and what that took you to do.
Sure. So maybe I'll take a little bit of a step back before college and some of my professional ambitions. But growing up, I was the kid going around the neighborhood selling candles and different things to try to get to summer camp. I mean, my parents divorced when I was very young. And so on my mom's side, there were 5 kids. And on my dad's side, there were 7 kids, including us. So there were a lot of mouths to feed, lots of things that needed to get done. And so we were okay, but there were things that I wanted to do and, going to summer camps and different activities. And if I wanted to do them, I had to make it happen. So I grew up from a young age recognizing that if I wanted to do things, no one was going to give them to me, right? I had to go get them. And my parents were supportive, getting me to a good college and different things. And we didn't want for anything, but some of the extra things I wanted to do, I had to make happen. So that was always a value that had been instilled in me from a young age, that if I wanted to get it done, I had to go out and get it. So when I started after college, I had literally nothing, less than nothing. I had $50,000 of debt. I had no cash. And so I was up against all this debt. I had to make these payments. And then my boss told me I was the worst employee he ever had. And the economy was terrible at the time in 2010. And it was a very scary time for me. I was just getting started. There was no safety net for me. And so I had my back against the wall in a lot of ways. I didn't have a lot of financial support and other things. And I had to go figure it out.
Why property?
So I did a Fulbright scholarship, and I had always wanted to speak another language. And that was something that I was driven to do. And I knew that I needed a way to pay for it. So I applied for funding and got it. And so I went to business school, and in business school, that's when my eyes got open to business. I learned about assets. I learned about debt. I learned about business strategy, HR, IT, and it really opened my eyes. And one module that stuck out to me was debt. And I understood mortgages. I understood real assets. I was never the genius guy who was going to be a whiz at trading and trading options and all this stuff. That just wasn't me. But I understood a real thing, a house, a resident pays the rent, the debt is on the property. I just understood it. It made sense to me. It was real. I had experience with it. And in business school, that's where I found rental properties.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about the mindset shifts that you had to make in order to accumulate such assets.
I came from a place of lack, that there was never enough, that we couldn't do things so money was kind of like a barrier in many ways. So I had to understand and unlearn that way of thinking. The money doesn't grow on trees mentality, well, we can't do that because we don't have enough, or there's never enough. That way of thinking, I had to really unlearn that. And it took a long time. It took many years of reading, of thinking, journaling, meditating, and trying to unwire some of the ways that I had thought, and seeing wealth and money as something that now that is attainable. It is possible, and something that isn't finite. It's infinite, and it's a tool. And so it took many years of education and unlearning what I had learned and thought was true, but wasn't and didn't serve me. And I read hundreds of books on it, and I decided that I just wanted to go a different path.
So what would you say, I guess, was the turning point that took you from, okay, like I really can't afford this, having that old mentality, and then wanting to strive out of that? Like, what made you break out from that?
Yeah, so I was always driven to succeed and to achieve. And so when I realized that the model that I thought would work wasn't working, namely, if I get this education and get this job, I can achieve success, grow up the corporate ladder. When I saw that that wasn't working, it made me rethink many things. And that is when I discovered that it's very rare to really make it on the corporate ladder, that there are other ways. And that's when I discovered entrepreneurship. Frankly, I owe that boss a favor. I didn't know it. It's been 13 years, but almost 14 years, but I owe him a favor. It was really in that moment that I realized, and the drive that I've always had inside pushed me through. And I knew that I had to find another way.
You went from a part-time, and now this is your full-time, and you've got a lot of stuff on your website, and you help people with their properties and all that. Tell us the steps it took, and what were the challenges that you faced?
Sure. So there were many, and I've made all the mistakes. So when I say these things that I'm about to say, it's because I messed them all up. So first you have to decide, and you have to commit. So, and it doesn't have to be real estate. It could be any business. That's just what I chose. But you have to make a choice that you're going to do this, and you're not going to accept mediocrity, and you want to go all in on this eventually, and that you're super passionate about it. So all those things should be true, because it's going to be hard, and there are going to be challenges along the way. So something has to drive you. You have to feel something in your gut that I'm going to do this. And if you don't feel that, maybe it's not the thing for you, or maybe you need to grow into that feeling, but you need to have that drive. Next, you need to get educated. So once you figure out, I think I like this, you really have to dive in and get educated on that thing. I read hundreds of books about real estate, listened to thousands of podcasts just like this to really hone my skills and my education. And then you need, after deciding and committing, and then after you get educated, at that point, you need to start taking the next step. So for real estate, it's what's my credit score? What are my cash savings? Am I bankable? And then understanding what properties do I want to buy in what locations. It will be different for everyone, but you need to look at what is the next step to take for this business. And then just break down that long-term goal. I saw myself, and I journaled about it. I'm going to own 50 units someday, or 50 apartments. And I broke down from 5 years into the future, every single year, what I needed to do and accomplish to get to that point. And so I'd say planning and journaling and writing it down is key. And then once you have your plan, you have to execute, and you have to keep that education loop spinning, because you can't you can't just stop educating once you execute. I did that for a while, and then I made mistakes for things that I didn't know how to do. So keep getting educated, keep executing, don't suffer from analysis paralysis, and keep pushing. So I'd say those are the top 5 things to really make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. You need to keep educating and don't stop that. Matthew, if someone's starting out in property, what would your advice be as in the first step, or knowing like what to buy, how to buy apartments, land? Like there's so many variables when it comes to buying property.
Sure. I think they need to, before they look out there, I think they need to look in here. In other words, what's my investment philosophy? What's my tolerance for risk? What do I want to invest in and why? For me, my why was that I wanted to be able to retire from my corporate job in my 30s. And I needed cash flow to do that. So I chose residential real estate houses. And also I liked the liquidity. They're easy to buy and sell. And that was what I wanted. Now, someone who maybe they're an attorney or more legal minded, maybe they want to do land entitlements, or maybe they don't want the headaches of the residential tenants. Maybe they just want more of a hands-off experience. So maybe they want to go into self-storage, or maybe they have a realty company or some other type of company where they need a footprint. And so maybe they want to go into commercial or office space and just be their own tenant, right? So it really depends. Those are examples, but it really comes back to the listener, to you. What do you want and why? So there's so many different types of real estate, but what do you value? Because you should invest for you, and it has to align with your philosophy.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you just decided to do property. Was there something like a catalyst, or did you see someone who is in that area that you got your inspiration from? What was it that made you decide to go in that pathway?
Yeah. So my family owned their own homes growing up. And so I was used to that. And then when I went to college, I was paying a lot of money to live in like a small box, and the amenities weren't really that good. And I thought, what am I paying all this money for? And I just thought, wow, this is a really good deal for them. And I thought, wow, I'm kind of throwing my money away. And so when I rented for about, I guess, maybe 8 or 9 years after moving out of my parents' house, it always kind of bothered me every month. And so that, combined with wanting to achieve, wanting to succeed, to feel like I was, worth something and wanted to accomplish something, and for childhood reasons and other things that I've worked through over the years, I just felt that I was always driven, and I just felt, why am I sending this rent check? And so I learned about how debt works and how investing works. And I learned how if the rent exceeds all the expenses and there's profit left over, and the property goes up over time, I just learned the math, and I decided this is what I want my investment vehicle to be. And it was the corporate world not working out, and seeing that I might not be able to grow there and achieve what I wanted to achieve. It was all those things. There wasn't one moment where like the light switch just went on. I mean, it was a process.
You not only have you accumulated your own portfolio, you now help others in starting up their own property portfolio. Take us a little bit around that journey and how you bring your clients on that journey.
Absolutely. So actually only philanthropy that I coach and teach. There's no fee that I charge. And I was actually, my wife and I had their 3-month-old twins, so I had to step down as the director, but I was the director for a year of a nonprofit called the Real Estate Lab in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And what the Real Estate Lab does, it's a mission that I'm very aligned with. It's providing knowledge, networks, and capital to disadvantaged demographics that never would have had the opportunity to learn about real estate, get into the business, have the network of people to tap into, lenders, contractors, insurance agents, property managers. And it's a 12-week program. We teach from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, starting with the mindset of the investor all the way to selling properties at the end, how to invest. It's about closing the wealth gap in the US by teaching real estate investing. And it's a program that I'm super passionate about because it's changed a lot of things for me. And I think everyone should have access. It doesn't matter where anyone's from or what their background is. Everyone should have an equal opportunity to become wealthy, and they could choose not to, but just because no one told anyone or they were historically excluded from it doesn't mean they shouldn't know, right? So real estate was huge for me, and I want to pass that on.
In your years of entrepreneurship, have there been any other enticing side hustles that have come your way that you think, oh, that's a really good opportunity, but maybe have not been for you? So someone who doesn't actually want to do, for instance, real estate, what are some other opportunities that you could suggest?
So I was in the beginning, before I really decided that I wanted to do real estate investing, you should ask my wife. I was thinking about this and that and the other thing. And I was looking at, in high school, I worked as in a Dunkin' Donuts. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking about an insurance agency, and I had all these different ideas. So, but once I decided on my side hustle, that was it. I put my blinders on and I said, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to do it with all of my ability. I'm not considering any other type of real estate in any other location, only investment real estate between 1 and 4 families. And it's only in these areas. And once I decided, it eliminated a lot of the churn. Well, should I do this and should I do that? And how do I know? And does this feel right? And I looked at many opportunities and I picked one and I went with it. And I went all in on it as a side hustle. I didn't try to do 3 or 4 at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really good, because a lot of people have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan EFG,
Right.
up to Z, and none of them work,
Yeah.
but you only had your plan A, and that's all, you made it work because there was no plan B.
Well, that's right. And, I'm not a burn the boats kind of guy and succeed at all costs, and this is the only option. I mean, there were other options, namely stay in my current job where I was earning a decent salary, decent living. But I think there's truth to focus. I'd heard this somewhere. Focus is an acronym for find one course until successful or something like that, right? Like I just decided that if I spread myself too thin, I'm going to fail at everything. And I need to put in my 10,000 hours to really get this skill, because it takes 10,000 hours to develop expertise. I learned that living in Spain, right? Like every day was Spanish, and you can't become fluent trying to learn Spanish, French, Chinese all at the same time, right? And I learned that. I play multiple instruments, and you have to focus on one. You can't try to play too many at the same time. It's the same with businesses. And I think people get distracted with too many ideas.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I love that focus one course until successful. I think that's a really powerful statement. Mathew, what role have mentors played in your transformation?
Huge. They've been enormously important. When I came back from Spain to the US and I started investing, I knew that I wanted to do it. I understood the concepts, but I didn't know how. And I joined a group of investors that every Saturday morning, while other young people in their young 20s, mid 20s, they were, maybe they were up late, the night before or whatever, hanging out, drinking, whatever. I was getting up on Saturday mornings, going to see these properties with a group of investors in their 50s and 60s. And I'd get breakfast with them every Saturday, and I had no clue. I remember asking these guys, like, how do you de-winterize a property? I mean, all you do is just pour water down the drains. I didn't know that. I started from no knowledge, nothing. It was through going around to see all these properties with this group of investors that I learned all the skills, and I asked questions, and they were excited to share their knowledge, and I was excited to learn. So mentors were huge for me. It changed everything.
It's so important, isn't it, to have someone that you can go to seek that like mentorship, the leadership, and just get that advice from. So just for our audiences as well, if someone wanted to rewrite their life story, what advice could you give them today?
I think that it starts with desire, and it starts with a reason why, because it's hard to make those changes, to unlearn and relearn. It's easy to fall back to old habits. So I think there has to be a really strong driver, and the person has to have motivation to really do it. And so I think rewriting the life story on the outside first starts on the inside. And so it has to start there. And there has to be a reason why. It could be for, I have young kids. It could be for health reasons. It could be for financial reasons. It could be any reason, but it has to start inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mathew, If you were to go back and rewrite your own life story today, what would that look like?
Probably would have started investing in real estate sooner. I might have gone to college for an investing type major to learn, or economics, to really start learning these principles sooner. But I probably wouldn't have gone to engineering school. I probably would have gone to business school. But at the same time, I learned many valuable skills that I still apply. So there's not much that I would redo or change other than get started sooner in this business.
And there's no time like today if you haven't taken the opportunity to start sooner as well. Matthew, it's been great having you on our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know more about Matthew and what he does, you can head over to his website and his socials, and all the links will be in today's show notes. Matthew, thank you so much.
Stephen and Sharlene, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
We hope you found this episode enlightening.
For more information on the topics discussed, please visit our website at stephenandsharlene.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, share it with your friends, and follow us on social media at Stephen and Sharlene.
Until next time, stay informed and inspired.
This is Stephen and Sharlene signing off from the Rewrite Your Story podcast. Thank you and stay blessed.